when you go to market and you get chain business, ShopRite, for instance, these people are in ShopRite every day and they're filling the shelves. Other people go direct where they could use UNFI or KE, and the product gets dropped off in the back room and they rely on the employees of the retailer to fill the shelves. These are the same people that are filling the green beans and the paper towels and everything else. So you don't have as much focus. When you have a DSD network, it allows a sales rep to go in to a ShopRite, for instance. And if you're on sale, you may be able to get a secondary floor display. So I believe in the DSD model. Basically, that's because I've grown up in it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. I am your host, J. Michael Fischer Jr. You know, the beverage industry looks pretty simple from the outside. Great branding, a strong product, and the right distribution. And then you just win. But behind the scenes, it's one of the most competitive and misunderstood industries out there. And for founders and operators, and especially investors, there's often a real gap between what people think drives success in the space and what actually determines whether a brand scales or stalls. That's exactly what we're going to dig into today. I'm joined by Bill Butrymowicz, a leader in the beverage space and part of Loom Brands, with a unique perspective, not just as an operator, but also as a contributor to platforms like Forbes and Rolling Stone magazine, where he analyzes a lot of industry trends and can give us a lot of knowledge on it. Bill, it's great to have you on, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to tell you about the beverage industry and what we got going on over here.
I love it, man. I love it. So to start, can you give us a little bit of context on your background and what led you into the space? I mean, besides being part of a family-owned business that's in the space, you know, what kind of drew you to it?
Yeah, so kind of started back with my father. He grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and was a truck driver for Pepsi out of South Kearney, and decided to quit his job when I was 7 years old and open up his own beverage distribution company. It was a real American dream type of story, blue collar guy. We were working out of our house. Times were tough for quite a while. And he started having some success with Snapple and was eventually given the opportunity to acquire the exclusive distribution rights for the brand along the Jersey Shore area. So from there, basically all the independent brands that weren't owned by Coke or Pepsi would come to us looking for distribution. So I was fortunate enough to be, surrounded by the founders and CEOs of some of like legacy brands, like whether it was Fiji or Sobe. And as I got older, I became more involved in the business, and we did like Vita Coco and Bai, and now it's Liquid Death, Poppy, Body Armor, and you really get to an understanding as to what makes brands win in such a competitive category. And I felt like I'm built from the same cloth as my father. So he created a life for himself and for our family that he probably could have never have imagined. And I felt like I had an obligation not only to them, but to myself, given the position that I'm in, to really try to take this to the next level and leave an imprint on the industry.
I love it. I love it. So as a kid, summer job, were you, out there loading trucks, delivering trucks? I mean, I'm assuming I had some pretty cool summer jobs, but you working for dad, I'm sure.
Yeah, I literally grew up. Our warehouse is in Lakewood, New Jersey, and in the industrial park. And I grew up, whether it was sweeping floors. I think my first job was in breakage, which is like you're cleaning broken cases and broken bottles and loading. And then, throughout high school, my grandfather would pick me up. I would get out of school at about 1:30, and he would drive me to the warehouse, and I would work the night shift and load trucks with the guys at night. I ended up doing sales routes and just kind of learned the business from the floor up. The one summer I remember I didn't get paid. I worked in the office and I was answering phones and doing stuff around the office. And I worked an entire summer to get a Dell computer, which was like $700. And I worked like 2.5 months for for a $700 computer. But at the time, like, I've always been a hustler, and, you know, I was just helping out around here. And I was probably more annoying than I was helpful for the younger years of my life.
No, hey, I mean, like we've all been there. Was there a moment though, you know, going back to that time, you know, spending time in summers there and weekends and nights and stuff, where it just finally clicked and you understood it?
Yeah, I think the moment I started picking the brands that we would distribute, and you have to be very selective about that because you don't want to waste your sales team's mind share selling products that aren't going to turn. We're a volume-based business, so we need to move a lot of volume. And also, when we go to our customers, whether they're bagel shops or pizzerias, or independent accounts, they've learned to trust us when we come to them with a brand that they're not familiar with because we have a great track record. So we're very strategic about, we don't just take every brand and throw it against the wall and see what works. We try to be strategic. And I think over time, I realized that when brands present to me, which is, you know, weekly, not every brand is meant for me. So like,
how do you mean by that? So that's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah. So like, you have to learn to take your personal opinion of the taste of a product or the marketing or messaging of a product out of the equation. You know, we have every brand, you know, we have a lot of brands. We have probably 50, 60 different brands. And I always take home like the same 2 or 3 products. And it's because if, you know, Alani Nu, they just were acquired for $2 billion by Celsius. That's a female-based energy drink. You know, it's geared towards females, and it's like, it's very sweet, and like the packaging might not be something that would attract me. But what you learn to do is you learn to look at the infrastructure of their organization. Do they have beverage people surrounding them, where their capital comes from, their route to market, and I make my decisions based upon that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny. You brought up a lot of brands. I mean, we were talking about before we got on the pod here, like, you know, we're both golf guys. We were saying how your children are now taking golf lessons. I'll never forget with Snapple, like my mom would never buy us anything good, but when we played in the golf league, she used to let me buy Snapple. It was 50 cents a bottle, I think it was.
Okay.
We could pick out all these Snapple bottles, and then I'd bring 2 of them in my golf bag.
Nice.
But like, you know, you see Snapple still, but then like Arizona popped off, and then all of a sudden it's something new. I mean, how are these legacy brands able to stay current, right? And still be, do people just get used to it? Because I feel like everybody tries to get into it, but it's so hard to do it. Who knew Liquid Death, putting water in a can, would then all of a sudden be this like new thing?
Yep. I think for the legacy brands, you have to realize that there were a lot less brands around when they came out. So they had a very captive audience. Like when I think of Snapple, I think of like intermediate school and high school, like drinking a Snapple with lunch every day. If you're from like New Jersey or New York, like that was just part of your daily routine. And I think Snapple was also like ahead of the curve a little bit. They were involved in a lot of New York metro media. So like they were on the Howard Stern show, they were on Seinfeld, they were in The Sopranos. Like, so they had a lot of visibility, but there were a lot less options back then. Yeah. So now, you know, think of the craft beer craze. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Think about how many different beers are out there now compared to 25 years ago. And it's like, so it's harder to get loyal consumers than it was previously. A lot of it has to do, like Liquid Death, for instance. The water industry in particular has been under fire because of plastic bottles. Whenever you hear, hey, like there's an island the size of Texas in the Pacific Ocean filled with plastic water bottles. It's not plastic soda bottles, it's plastic water bottles. That's what people say. So people have been trying to put liquid water in particular into a can for a long time. I think when it comes to Liquid Death, they're a marketing company. Like, you know, they move a lot of product and they have a successful beverage for sure, but their value really comes from their marketing and being a culturally relevant product and being able to break through the mold there.
I love it. That might be a good like transition, because I definitely want to talk about, your brand itself, Loom, you know, I know that the bottles for that are specifically made to kind of counteract some of this like plastic waste and stuff. But I really love the framework, when I was researching it a little bit, that, you were kind of watering down juice for your kid. I mean, at our house, we're like hint water people. Like that's what we've always, given our daughter. And because we didn't want all the extra stuff. I mean, was that really like, did you see a space for that? Just like, how did you get into it? Why did you do it? How's it going?
Yeah, I invested in a brand. I invest in brands. So I had invested in Buy, which was a Jersey-based brand that had like a $1.6 billion exit to KDP. And one of the brands that I invested in after that was Lemon Perfect. And I thought that it's basically just lemon juice and water. And I thought that the simplicity of the product was really intriguing. A lot of the brands that are currently hitting the market, there's a lot of education that it needs to be, the consumer, they make split-second decisions when they're looking in a cooler door or walking down the beverage aisle. And sometimes less is more. Like the simplicity of the product, I think, is easy for consumers to understand. I was drinking the product in the morning, the afternoon, and at night, which is multiple points of consumption, which is always key. It's like you can have a Snapple, for instance, with a bagel in the morning, and then you could have it with a slice of pizza in the afternoon. You want a product that people can buy throughout their day. And what I realized is, like, I wondered why they didn't put other fruit juices into the water. Like, it's just lemon juice. Because as a distributor, we have all these brands. We're never presented juice products. It's like juice is a dying category.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
So a couple of reasons. One, it's stale. Like it's very lame. Like it doesn't resonate with anybody. There's really no fun marketing behind it the way that like sodas and energy drinks have. But also there's 44 grams of sugar in a 12-ounce serving of orange juice. Think about the soda industry, for instance. It was like less than 10 years ago, there was an exodus of people leaving soda because they were looking for healthier alternatives and moving on to seltzer and bottled water. And then Poppy and Olipop came along and created products that were basically flavor profiles that were the same as soda, but they were a better version of it, a healthier version of it. And I felt like there's an opportunity. The juice category is a $26 billion category. There's no innovation. It continues to lose market share. What if we were able to create a product that was real juice, but a quarter of the sugar and a quarter of the calories of a traditional juice, but also do what Liquid Death did and be a marketing company and a media company and a culturally relevant product in a category that's like the least sexy category in beverage. So that was our opportunity. And also the innovation that we have seen in juice is typically HPP or fresh pressed juice, which is at a price point that is not inclusive to everybody. Like those price points are typically $4.99, $5.99, and they need to be refrigerated and they have a short shelf life. So when we created Loom, it is a shelf stable product, but it's also often the people that need healthier products, it's not obtainable to them, whether it's an economic status or what. So we wanted something that we feel like could win up and down middle America, Main Street, be at a price point that's affordable to everybody, but also being shelf stable would allow us to have end caps and floor displays and pallet displays and really have multiple points of disruption throughout our retailers.
Very cool. So how's it going so far? I mean, has it been challenging? Is it starting to blow up? What's going on with it?
Yeah, we launched it in August of 2024. We did like 20,000 case run. We sold 16,000 cases in our first 90 days up and down the street through our distribution, obviously. We won Best New Brand in 2024 from BevNet, which was exciting. And we, the band Fish invited us to be part of their health and wellness program. And we did partnerships with AEG and Bowery Presents. So we did like Turnstile's album release party. We did the Fortet, Swedish House Mafia, etc. We got New Era making apparel for us. We have multiple collegiate athletes, Justice Haynes, Nick Harbor. These kids are going to be professional football players. We have them on our roster. We have a roster of young emerging talent called the Luminaries, where they're young people who are going to be the future of their industry, and we're helping support them, and they're supporting our brand. So we have Alyssa Carson. She wants to be the first human to ever go to Mars. We just did a documentary with her. It's been really fun, and now we're opening up retailers across the country. We have distribution. We have about 63 distributors currently signed. It's been fun. It's exciting. It's extremely stressful. This is a pay-to-play industry, so you have to be well financed if you want to compete against the big boys, and that's been probably our biggest hurdle so far, is just capital raising and whatnot.
Gotcha. Now, maybe this is a question for offline. I mean, have you what does the stack look like? I mean, have you brought in outside investors?
Yeah. So we're looking for strategic investors. We have like John Ledestri, who owns Ledestri Co-Packing, and National Cortina invested in us, is well respected. We have some of our distributors invested in us, which is always a good sign. That means they believe in the product, and they're going to, pay more attention to your product and pushing it. So that's exciting. We raised about $750,000 from outside investors, and then we've basically funded the rest of the project ourselves.
Very cool. We'll have to talk about that more offline. I would have loved to have gone to Turnstile's album release party.
It was sick. Yeah.
Big fan of Turnstile.
Yep.
So listen, when, you've had a lot of experience in this, where do people, really get it wrong when it comes to building a beverage brand?
I think a lot of people get into the space because they see like very large exits from certain unicorn brands, and they don't know the beverage industry. And picking a route to market, I think, is really important. Whether you want to go DSD, which means you use distributors to get to market, or you want to go direct. I think a lot of times young brands spread themselves too thin too early, and they don't actually penetrate or own a certain market, and then they don't have a selling story to use in other parts of the country. That's one. Sometimes brands go into retailers too early. So like, for instance, if Walmart was to ask us if we wanted to be in all their stores right now, it would be or Wawa, for instance, it would be very hard for me to say no, even though I know that saying no is probably what's best for the brand. Because what happens is they go in too early. People don't know who the brand is yet. They don't do the velocity needed to stay on shelf to keep their shelf space. They get kicked out. And then when it's actually time to go in and they're ready to go in, then these retailers don't take them back because they had previously failed. So I think being strategic about your distribution, region, and your retailers is paramount.
I was going to ask you, what's kind of the gap between what many founders think matters versus what actually drives success. And I feel like, based on our conversation, I've gotten so much out of this now. I feel like it's more about the brand story, and the marketing is what really most important. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you have to have good liquid too. And like, you have to find white space. There's just so many brands out there, and it's so competitive to where you have to differentiate yourself from everybody else. I try to make it personal. So I don't want 10 out of 10 people to like think that the brand is okay. I'd rather 3 out of 10 people really love it. So like, our brand messaging, like, we go after a culture that resonates with me. And I know, if it comes to DJing and hip hop music and skateboarding and punk music and going to concerts and sharing, if I create content surrounding that and stuff that's authentic to who I am, authenticity, there's an underlying attraction to that you can't fake. And it's like, that's why like Nas is one of my favorite artists, but like Willie Nelson or Jerry Garcia is one of my favorite artists, because those guys aren't pretending to be anybody else but themselves. And if you do that with your brand, I feel like you have a better chance of resonating with somebody, and entertaining people is important too now. I mean, I think there's a lot of customers who go to a cooler door, especially in the beginning with Liquid Death, and they're looking at all the waters they could buy. And I think that their mentality was, this brand has made me laugh online at one point, and I'm going to pick it up. Like, one of the hardest parts is like a lot of these brands, like, you don't make money. There's no money being made. So like when you show this to potential investors, I think they look at it, and people who aren't familiar with the beverage industry or certain CPG industries, they look at the bottom line and they go, when are we ever going to make money? And it's like, you're going to make money on your exit. So that's like another hurdle that founders are dealing with when it comes to raising capital too.
Yeah. Yeah. What, I mean, so from, because we've seen a bunch of the big ones, pop off here in this area. I think Poppy, wasn't that a Monmouth County-ish area?
No.
Poppy, one of the other ones was big that was around here. I'm probably
Bai was from around here, and that was a massive exit for them.
So what was the secret sauce in that? I mean, I'm sure your success leaves clues. I mean, what was the secret sauce in it to have that big exit? What are they all doing that's the same?
I think they all have the right people who invested in them that can like move other like levers for them. So they're strategic investments. They're not just, they're not taking dumb money. They're getting people who have connections in other parts of the industry that can help them. And they're taking advantage of white space. So like when I think of like Bai, Vitamin Water had just been acquired for $4 billion. And typically when brands are acquired, they lose market share because they lose the focus that they would have, by going over to a Coca-Cola. They're not an independent company anymore. So I think Bai was able to take advantage of Vitamin Water's acquisition and create another product, an enhanced water with antioxidants that was similar to a product like that. Poppy took advantage of people leaving the soda industry and looking for a healthier alternative, but they also got an investment from Cavu. They're one of the leading investment companies in CPG. So they opened up all kinds of doors for them. And at the time, their only competition was Olipop, and Olipop wasn't a shelf-stable product. And Olipop is extremely successful. I'm just saying, like, they had like their own path when it came to that. So
got it.
Like Body Armor was another great example of people had been trying to fight against Gatorade and isotonics, being the only isotonic for a very, very long time. And when Mike Rapoli launched Gatorade, he obviously had the funding to do it because he owned Vitamin Water, but that was a serious uphill battle. Yeah, these founders like think different. I mean, it's 24/7 for these people. So you have to have strong leadership for sure.
Got it. So now when we talk about white space and everything, what does really good distribution look like for you? I mean, is it spread out across the country? I mean, how does that really look?
Yeah, so we have a DSD model, which is what my distribution company is. So we cover a certain area and we're part of like a puzzle. So every county is a piece of a puzzle, and we have a network that covers up from basically Maine down to Delaware. And I work with a group called the NIDA Group, and you fill this puzzle in, and they service like independent accounts, and they service pizzerias and independent convenience stores and bagel shops. And when you go to market and you get chain business, ShopRite, for instance, these people are in ShopRite every day and they're filling the shelves. Other people go direct, where they could use UNFI or KeHE, and the product gets dropped off in the back room and they rely on the employees of the retailer to fill the shelves. These are the same people that are filling the green beans and the paper towels and everything else. So you don't have as much focus. But when you have a DSD network, it allows a sales rep to go in to a ShopRite, for instance. And if you're on sale, you may be able to get a secondary floor display. So I believe in the DSD model. Basically, that's because I've grown up in it, and I've seen there becomes a point where if a brand is going direct and they're doing a certain amount of volume and they're growing very rapidly, they need those extra hands on the product. So typically they'll switch over from going direct and they'll sign up and they'll create a DSD network, which is very time consuming, and it takes a long time to fill all of these counties across the entire country.
Yeah, I was going to say, but would that challenge you then in, scaling something like Loom? Because like you said, like you have people, how patient is that capital going to be?
Yeah, I think so. Like right now we have about 63 distributors signed throughout the country, and we do go direct to certain accounts if we don't have full coverage. Like typically you can't go, Stop and Shop comes on board. They may want you to go DSD to every store or go direct to every store. So what we want to do is we want to build the brand. We don't want to lose out on those retail doors. We'll go direct, and then we'll continue to build the brand and get more visibility. And then when the time is right, as we build out our distribution network, we flip those accounts over to our distributors.
Got it. That makes a lot more sense. So bringing this back to the people that listen to this, I mean, if you're a founder or investor looking at this space, what's one thing you should start paying attention to immediately?
Besides like data, like obviously like numbers don't lie. And that's something that, when brands come and present to me looking for distribution, you got to bring your data with you. So I'm able to look and compare it to other products in that category. I think you have to have a team filled with beverage people. This is a very small industry. Either you're kind of on the inside or you're on the outside, and it makes it very difficult for people that don't have beverage experience to understand how the industry works. So that's important to me because I invest in brands too. So I'm just telling you what I look for when I'm looking at a brand. Yeah.
That was my next question for you. I was going to ask you is like, when you see a brand out there, how do you know when you see one, how do you know it actually has a chance to scale? Like what are like some of the telltale signs? And the ones that that are just the opposite. Maybe you could take it from that that angle.
Yeah.
So when you know something's not going to work?
There's so many times that a founder will bring a brand to me and they present it and it's cool and the packaging looks good and liquid looks good, but they have no idea what they're talking about. And, or they'll get into a category, well, everybody drinks coffee, and I love coffee. I'm going to come out with a coffee drink. It's like, I don't know how many more coffees we really need. I mean, it's like, that is a very, very difficult category to jump into. And right now I look at functional soda, there's a million brands out there.
Yeah.
You have to find something that differentiates itself from the pack and is led by the right people, which is really hard to do. I mean, so many of these categories are just saturated. There's only so many spots in a cooler door. Where are you going to put this? I saw an interesting brand that is an energy drink that it's called El Jefe, and it's got a Mexican Day of the Dead kind of theme to it. And I was like, this is different. This is something that's gearing towards a certain demographic. And I think that there may be an opportunity here. So we're working on a contract with them currently, but yeah, you have to find something that nobody else is doing. And that's the only reason that we started Loom. It was juice is the least sexy category in the entire industry, but it's massive and everyone knows what it tastes like. And we feel like if we can create a healthy version of, if we can create a natural, healthy version of juice, but also be fun and add some modernization and some character towards a really stale category, there could be a huge opportunity there.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to ask you next is, it's interesting. I just had somebody on from the Silicon Valley talking about AI and all these different things. The next 3 to 5 years are going to get pretty crazy. And, I worry more about the average everyday consumer. What will they be able to afford? So I appreciate what you said with Loom is you see a lot of these juice brands and it's the price point is just, ridiculous.
Right.
But, to that point, what do you think will really separate the brands that will win versus the ones that'll lose in the next 3 to 5 years?
In the beverage industry?
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I've noticed over the past couple decade is that certain brands have the opportunity to exit and they hold on to the brand for too long and then it could nosedive. You're not going to have consumers aren't as loyal as they used to be. And I think it's really important when you're building your own brand to build your brand, like you have to build the actual brand and not have it be strictly licensing or celebrities or influencers that have their faces attached to it. Because, you know, a celebrity who's at the peak right now, Sydney Sweeney, you know, there's going to be another Sydney Sweeney a year from now. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to worry about building your own brand. And I think sometimes people get really into the celebrity aspect and quick fame of the product. But you can, you know, we watched it happen with Prime, and it's like, you can go from being a $4 billion opportunity, like, or we watched Bang, like Bang was offered $6 billion for their product, and they went bankrupt in less than 18 months. Like, it's like, so
what's the sweet spot on time then, do you think?
I think you have to sell, like, typically brands take between 5 and like 12 years. I think you have to sell when your flame is the bluest. So like, people get this thing, I want to be the next $1 billion brand, and I'm only going to sell when we get to $1 billion. Yeah, that sounds great. But if you have an opportunity to sell on projected growth at $450 million, and that's when people are going to pay the most for your product, that, according to the way that your product is growing, take it. There won't be an investor that you have that won't be happy with that exit. So I think, like, it's easy. I can understand how it would be very easy for brands to get wrapped up in their growth, but it's when you're willing to find an acquirer that's willing to pay for the highest trajectory of growth and pay for cases that have never been sold yet. That's when you want to exit. So I think, like, you know, finding the right time and knowing when the right time to exit is. Like, Liquid Death is currently valued at $1.6 billion, but it's going to be very hard for them to exit. Like, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they had to go public. So I think, like, that's something, and that's way down the road. Like, you don't get started in a beverage brand and like think and start planning your exit before you even get started, because that's a recipe for disaster as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So Bill, I really appreciate the conversation. You know, for those who are interested in the beverage space, maybe want to invest in it or learn more about what you're building, you know, who is Loom, you know, brands really the right fit for, and where can they go to connect, you know, directly with you?
Sure. So you can always email me at bill@drinkloom.com. You can go to our website and you can see what our mission statement is and who we are. You know, the brand is named after my dad. So like, Loom is short for heirloom. So like a gift passed down through generations as a nod to my dad and all the mentors that I've had in the industry, which is a lot of them. So yeah, like, I'm pretty accessible, to be honest with you. Like, I talk to people every day, and one thing that is cool about this entire project is the amount of cool people that I've met along the way. Like,
yeah,
there are so many people that have done amazing things out there, and they're so willing to like help a complete stranger, which is really encouraging. You know what I mean? So I always try to pay it forward. If you're a young brand and you're looking for what makes distributors tick, or you want some advice, or if I could be any help, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And for those who are listening, if you're a business owner or operator and thinking about how these kinds of decisions impact your business, whether it's growth, capital, or long-term strategy, that's exactly the kind of conversations that we have on a daily basis. So if you want to have some second perspective or just someone to think through it with, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to have a conversation. And if you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe to the pod and share it with someone in your network who would benefit from it. Bill, I appreciate you joining us, and let's continue to build something meaningful together.
Thank you so much for having me.